Surely the presence is here at all times. And I invite you to look at your order of service, if you would please. At the very top, under the heading Church of the Oaks, you will see 3 lines. Let's take a look at this last line and let's read it all aloud together, please. May all who come here, regardless of their spiritual philosophies, feel the presence. This means, to me at any rate, that wherever we have been in our spiritual journey, it has all led us to here. We feel the presence here. And whatever steps you have taken in the past, you are now here, and we welcome you here and believe that you have found your spiritual home. We just raised our voices to sing that beautiful song, Surely the Presence. And it was all about joy, peace, love, and it recognized the power and the grace that illumined this special place. And all of us here are in the spiritual community. We definitely feel the presence here, and we're glad that your presence is among us here. It serves to increase our joy, peace, and love. And so it is.
I had the audacity of rewriting Genesis. I wanted to tell the universe story and the way it was told that what I grew up with, the poetry and the cadence of the King James Bible. And so I wrote this story starting with 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang, the creation of stars, galaxies, planets, and life. And then there's a part of the story where I was researching the science of the emergence of the web of life on planet Earth. And a lot of the essences of the web of life are probably familiar to some of you. If you think of ecology, there's emergence, the emergence of evolutionary emergence of species and plants and animals and mycelia. The emergence of the essence of relation, how everything is related to one another. The essence of flow, the flow of energy between beings. And the essence of flexibility, of competition and cooperation between individuals and between species. And in all that science, there was something that was sorely missing. And that was the essence of beauty. And I wanted to read this part to you. And the web of life brought beauty into its creations. It wove symmetrical tapestries within each being. It splashed perfumes and colors across fields of flowers and groves of trees that insects might more quickly find their nectars. It purified the waters with the music of creeks and waterfalls. It gave melodies to the birds and calls to the animals as they sang warnings and welcomes to one another. The web of life wove tastes and smells into plants. Some bore sweetness, inviting animals to partake of their offerings of food in exchange for the scattering of seeds. Others bore bitterness, warning of poisons, and whispering of medicines held within. The web of life created soft furs, strong, smooth feathers and scales, and warm nests and dens, that its children might find comfort and thrive. Thus the web of life reflects the essence of beauty. That beauty shall be bound throughout the web of life, pointing the way toward harmony, usefulness, and mystery. In the delicate fronds of the ferns glowing green in the forests, beauty shall be found. In the grace of the lioness chasing down the gazelle as they dance the circle of birth and death, beauty shall be found. In the magnificent violence of the thunderstorm and the erupting volcano, and also in the tranquil morning mists across an infant African savanna, beauty shall be found. Beauty shall be found throughout the web of life, for it is woven throughout the universe. And one day the universe shall stand upright here on earth and behold itself, breathless in silent awe. Thank you.
A beautiful way to start our celebration together. And he did it in spite of the fact that he had to navigate my broken glasses here. A few of you recognize that I'm not Patrick Michael McCarty, and he is taking a day off today, as a minister often has to do, not often, but every few months anyway, we give him a day off. And he asked me to fill in for him, but fortunately, you don't have to listen to me solely. We have a guest speaker today who is well worth your being here, if for no other reason than that. Let's see, we're supposed to do announcements now. Oh, first announcement is if I look younger today, it's because I am wearing glasses that I had bought 4 years ago and put away, and fortunately found when I sat on these. But then, you know, the good news, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, is that I'm able to get them replaced. And anyway, I'll tell you more about that. But let's set these aside. Okay, today we have our guest speaker is Julie Miller. You all know that, and we're having the potluck. I hope you all brought lots of good stuff. And if you haven't brought anything, it doesn't matter. There'll be enough to share, so go on over and enjoy. Healing Circle. We're doing a Healing Circle again this evening, 7:30. I had it wrong in the newsletter. 7:30 this Sunday, and you'll tell us more about next month, I suppose. All right, Spiritual Book Study Group is every other Thursday, and it's going to be September 29th, which is this coming Thursday, and it's in the hall, is it? All right, it sounds like it's, and there's coffee and usually goodies, right? All right, let's see. Oh, I need to tell you something. Patrick delivered to me today a special donation that we received from one of our self-help groups that meets weekly in the hall. It's called Refuge Recovery, and they are one of our regular nice donation amounts that come in from them. They made a special, very nice donation, just as their way of saying thank you. And Patrick's going to talk a little bit more about that next week, but you're going to hear about Refuge Recovery and all the things that are going on that are doing good work in these self-help groups. There are some things coming up on October 9th. That's the board meeting, right? We're going to have a board meeting at 9 a.m. in the hall. You're invited. Also on that day, we're going to have a memorial for a former member who passed away a few weeks back, Bruce Voorhees. And apparently it's also going to be a potluck. So if you'll plan on October 9th to stick around, bring some food, and we'll have a memorial for Bruce Voorhees. October 14th to the 16th, some of you are going to find out there in the foyer one of these flyers. It's all about Off the Page Readers Theater. They're presenting their yearly autumn show, and it's going to be right here at Church of the Oaks in the hall. October 14 and 15, 7 p.m., and October 16, 3 p.m. They ask for $15 at the door, and masks will be required, but there will be music provided by Patrick Michael McCarthy, so how can you go wrong? So help yourself to the Off the Page brochure out there, and plan on attending October 14 through 16, one of those performances at any rate. Are there any other announcements that I'm forgetting? Okay, then let's do something a little bit more fun. How about singing about what a great morning this is? Oh, what a beautiful morning. Number 28 in your songbook.
Everything's going my way. Everything's going my way.
And now it's time to meet and greet in the fashion you're most comfortable with.
How are you? That felt like a quick turnaround.
Yes, it was.
How's it going? Still sawing away?
Oh, that's a good one. From a customer.
This is an interesting group, especially when you're up here and it's 11 o'clock and there's 4 people in the church, and we're all looking at our watch wondering, well, aren't we supposed to start at 11? We never start at 11. We just don't do that because suddenly the horde walks in at about 11:04. So you all know we start no sooner than 11:05. We're glad you showed up when you did. Very good. All right. Oh, I was going to mention these again. I sat on them. I tried to adjust it. They broke this morning. Now, I'm one who likes to type things out and read a little bit. So I was concerned about today. I was going to tell Julie Miller, you may have to run the whole service. Instead, we went to Costco where I had originally purchased these. And I said, can you do anything for me? Number one, I got right in. I was the first one in. She said, come over here. Oh yeah, we can handle that. Oh, and it'll take a few days, but we'll get new frames for you. And oh, by the way, the warranty's still good and won't cost you a thing. Now that to me is a form of surprise abundance. You just don't expect that kind of thing to happen these days and not have to pay for it. Well, we are all so individually and as a whole abundantly grateful for the abundance that comes our way. It flows to us, and if we're doing things correctly, it'll flow through us, and we won't stop it from going elsewhere. And as a church, we sincerely appreciate the financial abundance that comes our way, that because each of you shares with us. But as we each pledge when we join the church, 4 T's, we do provide our time, our talent, our thoughts, and some treasure. So having said that, while we don't pass the basket during our services, we do have a basket in the back of the church. For those of you who are so inclined to leave a cash donation or a check, you can put it there. Or some of us, quite a few of us, are actually making monthly tithe donations. And as the treasurer of Church of the Oaks, I can smile now and say, we're better off now than we were a few months back in the middle of winter. So you're all doing a good job. Keep up the good work. Let us read together the celebration of abundance that's in the middle of your order of service, right below the words, celebrating our abundance. Here we go. When we choose to give, if our gift is inspired by gratitude rather than obligation, we are manifesting the power of the divine and the spiritual principle of abundance. Let us reflect on those words for a moment or two. Thank you. And now, in preparation for the practice, it's time for us to open the Wings of Song to page 97 and let us sing together In the Stillness.
Morning. It looks full out there today. It's exciting. Let's see. So we're just a few days past the autumn equinox of year that always feels like it's inviting us to let go of the old. And that process goes on for a while. I feel it goes on until about in Bialik, which is the beginning of February, when the sun starts to come back in a more noticeable way. But I really want to use today's practice to tap into that kind of autumn breeze of letting go. And I also want to just take a moment to announce that we're having Healing Circle tonight. We're not having it next Sunday night because we'll be out of town. But tonight we are, and then 2 weeks from tonight. So for today's practice, let's just take a couple deep breaths together. And if you have a favorite autumn memory or place that you like to go hiking this time of year, or anything like that, just call that to your mind now. Perhaps you're hiking a mountaintop, mountainside. You can even, in your imagination, hear up high it sweeps down the side of the mountain. In our minds today, together, this is a holy breeze with the power to cleanse and clear anything we're now ready to let go of. So let's do this. Let's just, as we continue to breathe, have it be your intention that whatever you are now ready to release, to let go of in your life, and you don't need to know what it is, it can just be a feeling, even a symbol or a color. Just put all of that symbolically up at the top of that mountain or in that pond that you're walking by, perhaps. The details are less important than the way they speak to you. Just put it up there, and now, as a group, let's just call in the holy wind of change. On the count of 3, just see it come swooping down and blow all those cares away. 1, 2, 3. Feel yourself lighten a little bit. And with this new buoyancy, turn and return to wherever you started from. Trusting as you listen, as the song says. Joy now fills us and thrills us, mind and heart. Namaste.
Good morning. That was such a good transition to what I'm going to speak about today. So thank you for that image. I could feel when you said breathe in and breathe out that that was the gathering in and the releasing too. So it felt like it was body and soul and mind. Well, it's nice to be back in your church and to spend some time thinking of Patrick at home on the couch. And although he was here this morning, so when I got out of the car, I said, I'm going home, you're here. And he goes, no, no, no. But as I sat with this message this week, I've had some teachers. And I love that. It's been very consistent. And I've been ruminating on what to talk about, and these teachers showed up for me. I spent the first half of my life as a professional naturalist and a park ranger. And so whenever I'm working on something, I often look to nature to be a guide or to give some inspiration or to elicit some thought or idea or feeling. And so, as you said, we celebrated the autumnal equinox this week. And, that's an interesting time when as the earth goes around the sun, we're usually tilted towards or away from the sun, but at this time of the year, we're more upright as the earth on our axis. And so the earth gets both the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere the same amount of light. So we have equal light, 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. It's also a time of welcoming the seasonal change of autumn. And I think in my lessons of nature, I love autumn partly because I was born in the autumn. Maybe that's a longing of my own inside. But it's also a paradox, and I like paradoxes because they're usually opposites and they are fun things to work with. And this whole idea of fall representing this time of gathering in nature and in releasing is a paradox. It even looks like a paradox when you say gather and release. And so we see it all over the place right now. We see squirrels, feverishly gathering things and tucking them into little holes and digging. We see the acorn woodpeckers taking acorns and finding the right hole to put them in. And we see things going to seed and blowing away in the wind. We see the grapes being harvested and that all culminating a long season of growth. And we get tomatoes, like we have tomatoes out our ears right now, and so we're harvesting. And then there's that releasing. So there's the bringing in of good things and the releasing of things like leaves. I was standing out here in the sun before we started and just seeing all the diversity of browned leaves on the ground outside the church and just remembering that things go to seed, leaves fall off. We're preparing for a time of limited sun and cold and non-abundance in the sense of the natural world. And those seasons are replicated in our own lives. So it gives me pause to interiorly drop in and say, what is it that I need to gather in this season? And what is it that I need to release? When I thought about what I wanted to gather in, I've been really aware of wisdom from elders and wisdom from what I now have learned from my indigenous friend, youngers. We don't call them youth. He calls them youngers. So we have elders and youngers. That's been a theme in my life lately. And to release ego. What I need in order to build myself up, my self-importance and my esteem and my self-consciousness. So those are the things I've noticed interiorly, and I have a couple stories just to kind of illustrate that happened to me this week. I have a young woman who's living with us. We have a tower on our property. She's a 22-year-old. I think that makes her a Generation Alpha. So if you know what your generation is, that was a new one to me. That's the current generation through the 1920s. So she's a Generation Alpha. I also have in our household my stepson who's 42, so he's a millennial. And then I'm an edge walker between Generation X and Boomers, and 1964 is the drawing line, and that's the year I was born. And then I have a full-on baby boomer in my midst, which is my husband, Sylvan. So between all of us in our kind of household, we have a 22-year-old to a 73-year-old and all ages in between. So there's a great perspective in that. So this is what I learned from my younger 22-year-old this week. So I'd made some pesto, and I took one of those large, beautiful tomatoes and this little jar of pesto, and I put it in her refrigerator, and I texted her and said, there's a surprise waiting for you in the refrigerator. So she got home, and she found it, and she texted me back and said, OMG, I'm going to make myself a dank sandwich. D-A-N-K. Okay, does anybody know what this means in today's? Okay, well, I'll see if this rings true then. So I was at the breakfast table with my boomer and the millennial and myself yesterday morning, and I looked at Sylvan and I said, honey, what does the term dank mean to you? And he said, well, kind of dark and clammy and moist and cold. I said, yeah. And I looked to the millennial and I said, what does dank mean to you? And he said, oh, it means some good weed, some good pot. And then I pulled up my phone and I looked at the text from the 22-year-old and I had asked her, what does dank mean? And she says, it means unbelievably delicious. So I'm now, I don't know what to mean.
Usually it just means like really cool.
Like cool, yeah, that's good. So that was my learning this week from a younger, my wisdom gained to be culturally relevant. My other teachers this week were 10 women that were at the retreat center I work at, and it's just south of Healdsburg. And this group has been coming for about 10 years, but they've been meeting as a group for 3 decades. They meet monthly for 30 years. And once a year, they take a 1-week retreat. And most of the time it's been in person, but a couple have moved away, so they do it through Zoom, but they always get together and spend quality time together. Just imagine what these women have experienced together in their lives in 30 years. Partners, relationships, families, children, health concerns, job changes, celebrations, times of crisis, all kinds of things. And they share from deep within, and they ritualize it to help them move past these spaces, these transitions in their lives. They do that deep ritualistic work. And then they came to dinner they all had wax red lips. And sometimes they'll have zany hats on. And if they're here at October, they come dressed in costume. So they're just these zany, wild, deep women. And so I have enjoyed them very much. And I call them my wild contemplatives. And they were having lunch, and I came to their circle and I was chatting, and I posed a question I'm going to come back to in a minute. But I said, please define what you think wisdom is for me, or to you, to me. And oh my gosh, we spent an hour playing around, each one of them talking, giving examples and thoughts about wisdom. And when I actually had to get out paper and pen. They were just wise things. And then I realized I'm at work, so I had things to do. So I got up in the dining hall to go attend to something else, but I could hear one woman telling a story. And I only heard little pieces of it, and so I heard airport. I was naked. All the locker doors flew open. I ran outside. And I just had to go back. And so I sat down at the table with them, and I told them what I had heard, and they just cracked up. And she said, here's the real story fleshed out for you. She says, I was at the Santa Rosa Airport Health Fitness Center. I had just worked out, came out of the shower when the earthquake happened. I was naked. All the locker doors flew open from the rattle and the shake, and I thought I should get out of here, but I'm naked, so I put clothes on. I ran outside. And someone said, you ought to text or let your family know that you're okay. And so she sent a text to her 3 grown grandchildren and her 2 daughters. And she said, I'm at the airport. I was naked. I have clothes on now, and I'm outside. I'm okay. Send. And then she realized they don't all live in California, so they have no idea. And then she's like, oh, and there was an earthquake. So we laughed. I almost had coffee coming out my nose. It was so great. But there's that levity to eldership that I love. The self-conscious has gone way down, and the ego has diminished, and we become childlike again. And I love that. So those are my kind of examples this week from the youngers and the elders that I really, really loved. But if I were to take the seasons of life and spread them out linearly, if I had gone spring, summer, fall, winter, I would say that myself, I am in the fall of my life. At 57, I'm sort of in the fall. And like many of those born at either the end of the silent generation, the boomers or the Gen X generation, those, let's say, born after 1940, we are not aging and moving towards or experiencing retirement like our parents nor our grandparents did. They had the metaphor of aging that looked like a bell curve. Or they say the arc or the arch. Because you're born, you go into your midlife adulthood, and then you go into decrepitude. And that was kind of this bell curve. And I thought, And then maybe after retirement, you have about 10 good years. But boomers are living 34 years longer than our great-grandparents. Woohoo! It's like a second adult lifetime. I did some math. There are 96 million adults that are my age or older in the US today. There's 330 million people in this country, and 96 million are in that age range. That's about 25% of all Americans. That's a huge percentage. So if I'm in the autumn of my life, anyone older than me is in the fall or winter of theirs, these extra decades give us pause to wonder and maybe start to live into a new paradigm. Not this one, okay? And some are calling that the third act, which is what I titled this talk to be. Imagine the potential of this segment of our population to make a difference in our country. Powerful. So we have prayer residents at our retreat center that come for a month at a time. And they lead a morning meditation and prayer and an evening meditation and prayer. And the woman that is there currently, she is a retired therapist. And she is in her third act. She coined the phrase that is now being used by people like Jane Fonda and others, the third act, because she reinvented a new thing that she wanted to embrace and start after she retired. So she didn't really retire. She just moved on. And that was to help those transitioning out of they may have had for a long time into what she called elderhood. I love that. And she helps them understand their possibilities and their giftings and what's available and create roadmaps with intentions to move towards those things in this season of their life, in this fall, winter season. And she kind of gives the metaphor of a stage drama. So if you're like plays, the first act is we get introduced to the plot and the characters. And the second act is often all the subplots that begin to develop and the integration of stories and development of these characters' lives and their personalities. And the third act is where there's some kind of resolution. The story then comes to a climax and we get to some kind of great integration of all this people and this activity. And maybe the characters leave with some meaning making in their lives. So that's what she says we're entering into, this time of integration and meaning making in our lives, this third act. There's a great TED Talk that might be worth watching on YouTube with Jane Fonda that she did a while ago, but she talks about this third act and something that she's beginning to shift her gears towards and focus on, and she wrote a book about it. Her metaphor for aging was a staircase. Now, I love this because this goes somewhere. She quote says, "Now let me say something about the staircase, which may seem like an odd metaphor for seniors, given the fact that many seniors are challenged by stairs, myself included. And as you may know, the entire world operates on a universal law, entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy means that everything in the world, and I mean everything, is in a state of decline and decay, the arch. There's only one exception to this universal law." This is their ding, 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 pay attention. "And that is the human spirit, which can continue to evolve upwards the staircase, bringing us into wholeness, authenticity, and wisdom." I'm circling back to wisdom now. And that last word that Jane mentions is where my conversations with friends regarding the third act landed. Invariably, when I talked about this season, there was something that came back to wisdom. So I played with that. So I want you right now to try to identify someone in your life that you would say is wise, was wise. Someone you knew or just someone you knew of. On the screen, a neighbor, an elder. Just spend a moment, maybe close your eyes. Think of a person who is wise. And then what are the characteristics that come about when you think of what makes them wise? Why are they wise? And with your eyes closed, if you want to just say one of those attributes, just say it out loud and we'll just take a little time to hear.
Aware.
Where?
They listen.
They listen.
Above.
Say it again.
Above.
Above.
Loving.
Loving. Healing from within.
Compassionate.
Compassionate.
Humility.
Humility.
Sense of humor.
A sense of humor. That levity of my older friends. Wow, that's a superhuman. We're not saying you have to be all of those things, but those are some characteristics that are something. I tried to collect those from different people the last few weeks and then come up with some things that they kept crossing. There was synchronicity about. So here's what I got. It's learning coupled with life experience and reflected upon. Learning coupled with your life experience and reflected on, integrated. Someone once said it's not having life experiences that produces wisdom, but reflecting on life experiences. It's like I could do 1,000 things, but if I'll never know what really is my gifting or things that I value because I just continue to want experiences. So it's life experience with reflection. And then one of my sacred feminine women this past week, that group I was telling you about, said, learning to trust your intuition. Now, intuition isn't what comes through your brain, through your mind. Intuition is just stuff you've got in your interior. It's the stuff that you know, that you know, that you know. It makes sense as the word intuition's origin is a late Middle English word that means immediate spiritual communication. The stuff that you know, that you know, that you know can make you wise or contributes to wisdom. So in summary, we have teachers all around us. You can look at them right here in this room. We have teachers all around us. We have nature. We have people we encounter that provide opportunities in our lives through this integration, through this contemplation, and into releasing what no longer serves us and gathering what nurtures us and allows us to have more freedom. So we all have a third act to look forward to or live into now, and a staircase to climb. So I want to close with this little story. I was working as a pastor in a 55-plus community, and my average age in my congregation was 81, and I took myself out of the equation. Debbie knows this well because she played the piano there. It's in Oakmont. And I remember being the new person, and I was in charge of like social things and getting people involved. And I would ask these seniors, would you like to volunteer and do X? Would you like to volunteer and do X? And they would just smile really sweetly at me and say, Julie, I've already done that. At 80, the average age of 81, they've served in different ministries in the church, and they were just kind of served out and tired. So I was like, oh golly, what's the ministry of these elders in my midst? So I was at a conference where Father Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan monk, was speaking, and there was a break, and he was down in front, and nobody was around. So I walked down there, and I told him I'm a young pastor of a congregation of elders, and I'm just wondering what is something that they need to turn towards if they're all in this place of not being physically wanting to serve. And he didn't hesitate. He smiled and he said, Julie, they are to be mentors and elders. That's the role as we get older. Mentors and elders. So, my blessing to you all. May you dance upon the stage of your third act and climb the staircase into wholeness, authenticity, and wisdom, and may it be so.
Julie Miller, you be sure and answer the phone when Patrick Michael McCarty calls again and says, how would you like to come speak to us? What a wonderful message. What a wonderful delivery. Very glad you made it today. Very glad that we all made it today, aren't we? Oh, third act. Your story about the amazing group of women reminds me of another, what I consider amazing group of women that is especially relevant this time of year, this year especially, and that's the League of Women Voters. We're coming up to an election soon. There's going to be a lot of things on the ballot, and we won't understand all of it, and we might not know really what that person stands for. Do we want to vote for them or not? I recommend you check with the League of Women Voters. They've always given me unbiased, straightforward information that helps me make up my own mind, and I would recommend them highly to all of you.
Major league.
What's that?
It's a major league.
Yes, a major league of women. No doubt about it. Okay. Well, the third act. I got there a long time ago. And it's pretty cool. I'm telling you that right now. Let us sing about what a wonderful world this is, whatever act you happen to be in. Page 40 on the songbook. Gather up, grab a hand, and let's have a nice final amen.